You guys know Jody?
No, they're all here for you.
No. Say hi to Jody, huh? Yeah.
So I want to start out with, can you explain, Chris, about, tell me about Underbelly and what inspired it. And you came from Catalan and you have, you were at Brennan's before that. What inspires Underbelly? What's the concept?
First off, the microphone thing is absolutely weird because I'm generally loud enough that I never need one of these. So if I end up just doing this, I'm sorry, but it's going to happen. So Underbelly is what we call the story of Houston food, and it came about. I was at Catalan at the time, and it just decided that it was time for me to do my own thing and kind of portray the vision of what I wanted to do out there. And what it was to, well, I've been doing culinary tours with the CVB for a while, and I started to find myself ingraining into the cultures and the people that the restaurants that we went to, and really kind of becoming friends and family with them. And so I wanted to show the world, or show whoever who would listen, what I feel the story of Houston food is, and that's why the tagline's there. But it was Underbelly is actually translated to the side of things never seen. And so it was a lot of people, if you live in the city, or if you live on Katy and you're on I-10 and you drive into downtown every day, where you never get off the freeway, you miss so much diversity and so many amazing restaurants, and you see all the things on the freeway, but then you never go half a mile off and see what's there.
Beyond the Chili's and the Cheddars.
And so you get down and you start to see the Korean barbecue joints and the Vietnamese restaurants and just amazing Thai restaurants and all these different cultures that are combining into the city that make it such an amazing place. And it was the vision to show everybody that, but also through using our local farming and ranchers and seafood.
And so how does Vietnamese food in particular play into what happens in Underbelly?
Well, this is one of the largest cultures in the city. And it really came from, as a chef, it was, I think really for me was when I worked at Brennan's and right across, basically 2 blocks over is Mize, which was open till 4 a.m, which for a chef is great because you go and you have a couple of, and then like someone's like, let's go get food. And I'm like, oh, yes. And then like all of a sudden I'm standing in this Vietnamese restaurant coming from Tulsa, Oklahoma that didn't really exist, maybe it does.
And so Mize, can we confirm that Mize was your first Vietnamese experience?
It absolutely
Mize
was.
in Midtown, that's a very late night.
About 2:30 in the morning, crunchy jellyfish salad and special tea. Was kind of like the thing that really made me realize what was going on, and like all of a sudden I had that taste and I was like, this is really good. And then all of a sudden you start reading about it, and like every chef's dream is to learn more about Vietnamese food because it's so clean, it's just the beautiful flavors. It's not heavy, it's what you want in a dining experience, right? It really is. It's like, but for me it was like, that's the backbone of this city, and like that's what you see everywhere. And it's like you can go to anywhere else in the country and it's, oh, this is a great hamburger joint, or this is a great pizza shop down the street, or these people do really good pasta. And for here it's, look at that pho place, and this is the best banh mi, and this is that's what's around us. And so that it just makes sense. And all of a sudden if you can just kind of put yourself into that and going and learn from these, the culture, and learn from the people that put the food out, and learn their stories and learn their styles.
And you did that, didn't you go and stage?
It was my first stage, if you will, into.
Can you explain what stage is? Just
so basically, you just go into a restaurant and you work for free and you learn from them, right? It's cool, and that's how most culinarians do it. But a lot of most chefs will travel around the country. Like I've got a guy next week coming from New Orleans to come stage with us for a few days, but it's for me it was like I don't need to go work at Danielle, and I don't need to go work at the French Laundry, and I want to go work at Tian Phong. And so I want to go work at London Sizzler, and I want to go work at Asian Market, because that's what makes sense to me, and that's the food that drives me. It's like if you ask me where I go eat, on a normal basis, it's like Cali sandwich, Saigon Pagolac, Benoit, like all these are the flavors that I crave. And so to learn that means more to me than making a gel or something very beautiful. Like I want something that's going to taste really good.
With tweezers or some.
I mean, I'll tweeze the hell out of your mint and
not like, a tweezer guy.
Yeah, I'll put it up on that spring roll. I'll tell you.
So when you had some time off, and what sort of led you to Vietnam?
It was the desire. Underbelly has been open for 3.5 years now, and so we were coming up on 3 years, and I was like, it's time. It's time for me to go venture out. And Lindsay and myself was like, okay, where are we going to go? And I'm like, we both knew. It was like Vietnam. That's it.
Lindsay is his girlfriend sitting right here, by the way.
Yeah. So it was that clear decision that was like, why would I want to go to Spain, or why do I want to go to France? Or like, yeah, that's cool, we can do that down the road, but I really want to know where the food of this city comes from. And so that was the desire.
This city meaning Houston.
Absolutely, yeah. Is there another one?
And so stop giving me crap. So when you're setting about planning, you have 2 weeks, and you could have, most people when they go on vacation, it might be maybe they want to relax, or they want something a little bit easier than planning some super whirlwind tour. Or you could, if you wanted to go to Vietnam, you could have just gone to Ho Chi Minh City, or you could have picked one thing. And
I'm a super freak about things like this. I like planning. Actually, I shouldn't say that because my sous chefs are here. Yeah, hi guys. So I'm really a super freak about planning a vacation, travel. I like that a lot. And so it was one of the desires that, like, we can go here for a few days, and then we can go here for a few days, and I want to go see the production of fish sauce. I want to see what, it was like, if we're going to do 2 weeks, then let's go eat the country, because it's what most things in Houston, like Houstonians don't understand. It's just like the regional breakup of Vietnam. Click it. Boom. So, you like that? Awesome. So when you talk about the food from the north and the food from the south and the food from the central region, it's very dramatically different. The flavor profile is still the same, but you get to the north, and that's actually where the basis of pho comes from, and you get down in the south, and it's just this fun-loving area, and then definitely the seafood-driven things, often like pho quoc, and then into the central, that's where you get some of the rice dish, or the rice noodle dishes that we had.
So take us through exactly where you went.
All right, so we flew into Ho Chi Minh, Saigon. Stayed there. We got a guide, and then headed over. Spent 3 days there. 3 days, yeah. And then caught a flight. And by the way, flying in Vietnam is absolutely awesome and cheap. I mean, I was like, wait, I can fly at the front of the bus for $80? Yeah.
Who did you fly with?
Vietnam Air. But here's a little tip: don't book it on like Travelocity. Book it on their website, right? Because then it drops. So we went from Ho Chi Minh to Phu Quoc, spent a few days in Phu Quoc, and then up to Hanoi, and then went down to Ha Long Bay, got on one of the little boats, spent some time out there, and then back to Hanoi, and then flew down to Da Nang and went to Hoi An, and then flew back to Ho Chi Minh, and then flew back to town. Everywhere.
Did you set out with a goal in mind, or is this just what you do for fun? I mean, it's just...
Well, we had a really good person that kind of helped us out, and she works, we'll talk about fish sauce in a minute, but she works for Red Boat Fish Sauce, and she kind of was like, okay, these are the things you need to see, and this is what you need to do, and here's a list of places to shop, here's a list of places to eat, here's a list of hotels, and it was like, okay, this is all very helpful. And so, because there's a lot of things to do, and it's big. A lot going on.
Well, it's very overwhelming for someone
to,
I would like to go to Vietnam, and it's, how do you know where to go? How do you know?
If you're really afraid of mopeds, just maybe you should go to Spain. But if you're cool with the moped action, then it's fine. So, all right, what's first?
Okay, so with the mopeds in mind.
Oh, Jesus. Just walk through the street and hold your hands up. They'll go around you.
Well,
So when we were there, there's not much telephone communication, so we were talking to Jody on Viber, and she's like, hey, do you want to write this story, this blog post of like where you're going? And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And so we did that.
Just a little bit of background. I've known Chris for a while, and I knew that he was going, and I knew how important Vietnamese cuisine was to him and to what he does at his restaurant. And so I heard that he was going on this trip, and so I said, can you blog for the paper? And I hate asking people like that because, you know, when you go on vacation, that's sort of the last thing you want to do is, oh, can you send me pictures, and can you write, and can you do all this stuff? But he was totally game.
Yeah,
and
I actually didn't know I could write, which is like, well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, I can put pen to paper, but like to sit down and like verbally articulate what we were doing and how I felt about things, and it was really interesting because, it was probably the savior for Lindsay, because she could be like, I'm going to read, you need to write, and I'm like, okay, because it's like I don't want to sit still, I want to go do this. Oh, let's get a bon beef. She's like, you just had 8 meals. How could you be hungry? It's like, because I want one, you know. And it was like, so it gave her the opportunity to relax a little bit, and I would write, or on the plane I would write what was going on, and then she would kind of fill in the streets and what have you. And it was good. So then you got this.
So long story short, he filed these blogs, and then collectively we turned it into a travel feature for the Chronicle's Escape section.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
All right. So the first thing we did was we hit the ground running. Right. So we fly into to Ho Chi Minh, land there at like 1:00 in the morning. We stayed at the Majestic, right? Which, I don't know. It was like, sounds great. Sure, I saw it on Anthony Bourdain. Let's do this. It's a cool hotel, but like the savior for me personally was that they had a restaurant open 24 hours, and so we could go sit up on the top by ourselves of the hotel and have it was like the first meal. We'll get Jesus, what did I just say? The first meal is like the very first thing that we eat when we get back to Houston. And so it kind of, anytime we fly anywhere, when we land, we go get a bowl of pho. That means we're home, right? I don't care if we're gone for a day or a week, but that's, here. And so when we landed, we got to the hotel, and I was like, bowl of pho. Okay, it's all good. But the next morning we hired a travel guide, Calvin, which is in the story. And if you're going, you should get this guy, because if you want to eat, this is where he's going to take you, and it's relatively cheap to do it. But he's the guy that's going to take you, and he's going to take you to places like this. And
he's a former journalist who.
Yeah, he is a journalist and writes for the American section of the Ho Chi Minh paper, but kind of does this on the side, which is really cool because he's from.
How did you find Calvin? Was this
through the
fish sauce people that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like, here's another thing if you're traveling and if you haven't been there. So this right here, this chair, this is heaven, right? So that little red thing, to me, not heaven. So, but that's pretty much everywhere.
And those are everywhere.
That's where you sit, because most of the time it's like they're makeshift restaurants that have to collapse and go before like people see them, before like the police come up and like, hey, what are you doing? You know, whatever, give me a cut. And so they have to be able to break down and get the hell out really quick. And so that's very portable.
Wait, so if they're just
you can't really eat on the streets. Yeah, you can't really.
They're not supposed to be doing it so they can clean up quickly.
Yeah, like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about, man. You know, we're just making chicken wings. But like, so it's very makeshift. But this was the very first. Yeah, on the left, Lindsay's chair. On the right, mine. Right?
Oh, so they stacked them.
Yeah, I'd walk up and they'd look at me like, oh, shit. And then they just start stacking things, or here come a little metal one out, and I'm like, whatever, man. I'll sit on the corner. I don't care. So just be
So you dealt with that your whole 2 weeks in
everywhere we went.
everywhere
That's
you
when we
went.
were going into like a restaurant. Then it was that, which like at some points it was like, oh, how's this gonna work? But they're very accommodating. They look at me and they're like, I got you, dude. And then stack up, have a seat. And then they'd come back and they'd be like, here's another one. You know, like, you're good now. So it's pretty interesting. But this was our first meal.
So you're in Ho Chi Minh City.
Yeah, sorry, I just sidetracked. So our first meal, right? Best meal we had, hands down, I think, while we were there. And he just was like, do you want to go to the snail lady? Which is Ok, I think. And it's basically in this...
How many, do you want to go to the snail lady?
Well, that was 9 a.m.
It,
Right, 9 a.m. You want to go to the snail lady? Is it coffee first? And so, but we end up in this basically side street alley. And this is the lady, and she's got all these snails laid out in front of her. And she just, one little burner, which is right there on the right, and she just rocked out food. And it was hands down the best. There was like...
what did she make?
Little snails, coconut snails in like a coconut broth, and then clams and lemongrass and chili. And probably one of the best meals, one of the best tastes I had was, so they give you this little dish, right? And calamansi, which is kind of like
Are you talking about this one?
yeah, the one on the right. Calamansi, which is like a lime orange cross thing, delicious citrus, and chilies and salt, and then that was what you dip. But then she brought these scallops out that she cooked on the half shell, and then laced them in with lard and green onions and peanuts, and it was like boom. You're gotta be kidding me! And so I've got this table full of shellfish, basically, and they're like, here's some little needles, get at it, just start picking away. And I was like five or six different types. It was like $4. And then. Like, Calvin's like, are you thirsty? I was like, yeah. And he's like, hold on, you like sugarcane juice? I was like, yes. So he just runs like 20 feet, and this guy just presses down the sugarcane. He's like, here you go. That was a quarter. I was like, what is going on? Like, what? So then it was basically just this. We ate everything you possibly could find on a street without abandon. Like, I talked to my doctor before we went. He just gave me this
probably 9 meals a day and
satchel of things to take if I did, but like not once, you know. And so
you didn't get sick at all?
Not at all.
Throughout 2 weeks?
2 weeks,
Yeah.
just perfect. It was great. I think the only time I got sick is just because I ate too much. Because literally the first few days we pounded it. Because it was 8 meals a day for the first few first few days, which was pretty impressive. So on the right, basically, we came up across this other lady that she had banana stuffed in sticky rice, wrapped in banana leaves, and then grilled, and then topped with sweet coconut milk. It's like 75 cents. It was absolutely fantastic.
And this is still all in Ho Chi Minh City?
That's all in Ho Chi Minh. Yeah, I don't know what's next.
Oh, wait.
Too fast.
Okay.
So let's talk about this real quick. The best meal we had, the worst meal we had. I'll never forget the worst. This was the only thing I really didn't like. So the best thing, the little clams, right? Little snails. The worst thing I had, the snail that was bigger than my fist. It was basically
like
sea
a snail
snails,
steak.
which was great because we went over to Phu Quoc Island, and the guys at Red Boat, which he cooked for us at his house, which doesn't really happen that often. But the lady that works with him, she made us like 10 different dishes, and one of them was this massive sea snail. And then she just basically boiled it and chopped it, and it was literally like the texture of eating a nose. It was just like, Lindsay and I both looking at each other, just like...
You've probably eaten noses before of other animals.
Just crunching away, and I was like, oh my God, this is so bad. And like...
And I understand that you might have had to eat 2 of them because Lindsay didn't want hers either.
She stopped. She was like,
you couldn't be rude.
And like the lady's like, hey, just like sitting across the table, is it good? And I was like, oh yeah, you know, this is fantastic. Please God, I hope she never hears that. But yeah, so yeah, snails.
So what?
All right, so after we got up to, this is probably one of the cooler restaurants that we went to, which is in Hanoi. So
this is a restaurant that, like...
Yeah, big seats, great. So they also have one in Ho Chi Minh City too, but this one is in Hanoi, where it's basically like awesome dim sum, because you sit down and then you get this menu, and then they've gone around to the city and got the best street food vendors from all around the city, and there's probably 25 different vendors, and so you got each one of their menus, and so then you would order it, and they basically had their street food carts set up inside this restaurant, and they just hammer out food, and then the waiter would bring it to you and put it down perfectly in front of you. And so it was like you could try all of the street food vendors in one place, in a nice chair, with some cold beer, because the beer, hot, block of ice, not so much. But that was, I mean, I was like, because credit card's not existent. Right? Don't just cash it out everywhere. But I was like, I don't know if I brought enough cash on me. And I was like, oh, Jesus, we ordered a lot of food.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was like $20. It was like 14 dishes and 4 beers. And I was like, oh, we're good. Mm-hmm. So that's it. Best banh mi I've ever had in my life is in Hoi An. The bakery was right next door. So as they needed bread for the sandwiches, they would just bring it next door. Which I learned, if you order it inside and you're sitting there, it basically comes on the plate and then you get the bread next to it. And it's like, well, I don't know what to do here. And like, oh, you didn't order it to go. Boom, there you go. There you go, now it's perfect. And I was like, oh, all right. Because like we went there twice, and the day before, the people from the hotel went with us, and I ordered like 25 or 30 banh mi to take back, because they were like 50 cents. And I just gave them to the staff, as I get back to the hotel, I'm like, everybody gets a sandwich today. But we ordered it all to go, so I didn't realize that when we went back the next day and got breakfast, and I was like, boom, there we go. So,
and now here's a question. So, in Houston, there are lots of places to get banh mi,
mm-hmm.
and is there any dish that you had, or are there places in Houston that would rival what you had in Vietnam? Like a banh mi, I mean, what?
Yes, I mean, banh mi in this city is gold to me. But
is there something that Houston does particularly well with Vietnamese food, like pho or banh mi?
It's just ingredient difference. Here it's easier to get. So everybody thinks that going to Vietnam and the food is going to be better, and it's just different. Because they can't pick up the phone and call a purveyor and say, I need 50 pounds of sliced pork or whatever it is, or the eggs, and they don't have that ability to do that. So they're having to source it from what's around them and source it from their local guys that are getting it from the local farms. And so pretty much if it was grass, it was planted with something. If it wasn't concrete street or something else, there was something growing in it, which was beautiful to see, because it was just amazing farmland all over the place. And so it's just ingredients are different. The pork tastes a little bit different. The tomatoes are great. The eggs, pretty special. Pretty special.
The eggs in Vietnam?
Yeah. And the banana smoothies. Every day at the hotel, banana smoothie. So it's just that the ingredients are different. Not that they're better or worse, just different.
But as far as ingredients goes, and this kind of goes into these next couple of pictures, so one of the big things, and he said, these people with the fish sauce company recommended, kind of pointed him in the right direction of where to eat and what to do. Mm-hmm. But and this is something that you serve in your restaurants, this red boat fish sauce.
Yeah, so, all right.
But he basically got to go to the source.
Yeah, so that was the goal, right? That was one of the things about Vietnam. Is like, if we're going to go, I have to throw one little thing where I have to learn some things into it. And you walk into the fish sauce aisle at any one of your markets, and it's overwhelming. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. It's just all, it's anchovy this and this and that and that. Well, so apparently, and this is what we were told, is Phu Quoc Island is the place for Vietnamese fish sauce. It's the black anchovy that comes down to, and it's the waters, and it's just a perfect area.
And what is the closest major city to that island?
Yeah.
No, but wait, where did did you have to actually fly to get there?
Yeah, we flew from Ho Chi Minh to Phu Quoc Island, and then it's basically just little small stalls and stands in small cities on the island. Not much other than if you want to go. If you want to go hang out with Russian tourists, awesome, because they're all there. It's just like this little getaway, and the waters are beautiful. And she cut one of my things. Yeah, I won't say it. But it's just amazing. Like night markets.
He's mad at me for cutting some certain statements out of his story.
Well, she was reading a book on the beach, and like we're in the chair, and I look next to me, and I'm like, "Hey, this guy had his junk trunk," And like I was like, that was my favorite line of all time, and it got cut. Well, it's all right. It wasn't gonna work. She's probably mad that I said that. So is she, but that's okay. Ask for forgiveness.
So you go to a...
So we went out there, and that was the goal. It was like I was thinking this massive facility, right? And so we go in, we have lunch with the owner, who actually
of Red Boat Fish Sauce.
Of Red Boat Fish Sauce, who was actually Vietnamese born, but then came to the United States and worked for was one of the first people at Apple, right? Yeah, at Apple, made his money, if you will, and then was like, I'm gonna go back and do this fish sauce the way that my grandmother did it. And so he starts walking us through all this stuff, and I was like, you people look at you like the crazy one on this island, don't they? He was like, oh yeah, without hesitation. He was like, yeah, I pay the highest price for everything. I do it because it's right. We don't add anything to it, and you'll see that tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And so we go back to his house, and I was thinking this massive warehouse, right? And it's no forklifts, no machinery. It's basically big tanks in his house, right? That kind of go up to the water.
Wait, well, let's back up a little bit. So you went that next day.
He's like, let's go out on the boat. Let's go out on the boat. And I was like, okay. So he's like, one of the fishermen came in, so we're going to go unload. And I was like, okay, let's do this. So we get on this boat. We paddle out to the waters, and they meet up with this big blue boat. And he's got the only red boat, right? It's every boat out there is kind of aqua and ugly, and just like these boats that you would imagine, really. And then he's got the one red boat, which makes him kind of stick out. But it's basically a dumping ground for this. So these fish are caught and salted immediately and started to bleed out, which starts the fermentation.
These are anchovies.
These are black anchovies. And then it starts the fermentation process. And basically they tie up to this big boat, put like a 2x6. Well, no, that's not it. A 2x6 down from one boat to the other, and they basically just start sliding buckets of fish, and they just drop them on the boat. And then that boat, so the bucket, and then it goes back to the facility, and they basically load it into these big buckets, put a stick on their shoulder, so these buckets weigh about right at 200 pounds, and then hand carry them into the warehouse. So they've already been salted, right? And so the blood is coming out, and that's where the fermentation starts. Right, so the fermentation had already started, but I was like, this has got to stink, But then I picked up one of the fish, and it's perfect. Like it was caught 2 days ago, or a day or two days ago, but it's perfect in condition. I was like, this is gorgeous. It's like a perfectly cured fish, right? Because it's only this big. But so they loaded up. Basically, that's my great photo skills. Boom. And so the big barrels in the back are just cedar, like massive buckets, and then they makeshift this 2x4 ramp up the side of it on like stones, and then they just haul it straight up, dump it in, then go back. Then it sits for 355 days, and they check the clarity, and then start to drain it off. So when you look at fish sauce, and this is something that I've been very freaky about, there should be like, go buy a bottle, right? So Red Boat, it's $7.
Where do you buy it in Houston?
Whole Foods, really. But you'll start to see it in other places. But this is the thing. You can buy this or not. I don't care, right? I'm not a paid spokesman for them. But for the most part, it's my choice in something. It's more expensive. It's probably 4 or 5 times more expensive, right, than normal fish sauce. But when you look at the bottle of the fish sauce and you turn it and you look and see what the ingredients are, it's fish, salt. That's it. But like you turn some and it's like anchovy extract, MSG, sugar, salt. There's like a lot of crap in these things that are like $2. Don't save the money on that, all right? Because you're putting that shit in your body. And it's not good, right? It's not flavorful. It's not what it's supposed to be. I just did that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Damn.
He was really trying not to say curse words tonight.
That was it. My mom's here, so you know. But like, so be careful about what you're buying. Spend the extra money on it, and the flavor is so much better. And you know how.
And you use this red boat fish sauce in dishes at Underbelly.
Oh yeah. So like, how much fish sauce would you go through in a year, right, at your house? Like maybe 2 cups. Spend the money. We go through how many? So 6 2-liter bottles a week is what we go through at the restaurant. We use it in everything. But so, and I did some research on this. Like, so the average for Vietnamese consumption in Vietnam is it was like 5 to 10 gallons per person per year. That's a ton. But like, you don't use soy sauce, right? You have rice or whatever, you put fish sauce on it. It's delicious. Absolutely delicious. That's my fish sauce talk.
Okay, so red boat and.
It's not like a thing that, but I try to stress it on to people when they're talking about buying ingredients that they're not familiar with, right? Because how many people have fish sauce at your house? That's a good amount. How many of you actually look at the ingredient list on the fish sauce at your house? So yeah, go back, take a look. Not saying it's bad at all. It's just you can do better. Okay? You're going to go to the farmer's market, you're going to buy the best tomato. You're going to go to the grocery store and buy the perfect cut of something or whatever. Spend the money. Yeah. It's better for you in the long run.
Okay, so not all of Chris's trip was,
it's definitely
eating 10 meals a day in the city streets and the markets and sitting on tiny little plastic stools. He did have a respite.
So that was one of the things that was kind of a thing for us, is like, if you're going to do Vietnam, make sure you stay in a nice hotel, right? It's cheap. Somewhat. But that's the beauty of it. It's like the most expensive part about getting to Vietnam is actually just the airfare. And if you find good airfare, you're good, right? Food is pretty inexpensive to eat. Hotels, do your research on them. If it says 5 stars, do it, man. It's going to cost you like $200, right? You spend that on a pretty crappy hotel anywhere around here. But we stayed at this place, was the Metropole in Hanoi. And we got there, it was a little bit colder, but they have this bar outside. That's the bar. So it has all these little couches and blankets, and you go out.
And this is in the middle of Hanoi.
Yeah, and this is in the middle of Hanoi. Very historic hotel. Hanoi was a little bit of a culture shock for us because we weren't really... in the South, people came up and rubbed my belly. And we're like, what's up? You know, and they're talking to me. In the North, you know, it was like, okay. You know, so it was a little bit different vibe for us. And I think for me, really, I want to go back and spend another week there to really understand the beauty of that city. Because I know it was there, and it was just cold, and it's a little different for us because we went from like 85, 90 degrees to like 50. And it's like, oh. And so it was like dark and kind of different. But I want to learn that city a little bit more. But this hotel we stayed at, and then left from there to go get on a boat, but then went back to that hotel because it was like this happy place, right? That bar.
This
with
was your
the
happy
blankets
place.
And my bourbon.
Then this one in particular, I know that you were a big fan of.
Yeah, so this was the getaway from all getaways. And this is in Hoi An, just outside of Hoi An, actually. I mean, kind of in between Da Nang and Hoi An. And it's called the Nam Hai. You want to drop some coin? Just go there. Because it's worth every penny of it. It's private villas, and then you have another guest room on the side in your own pool. And the guy that just appears, because he did every time. Like, we walk out the door, he's like, Mr. Shepard, can I get you something? I was like, do you live here? And literally he did. Like, that was behind the house. He had his own little quarters. And so, like, I don't know how he heard me walk out the door, but generally I'm not that loud. But He would just show up.
And this resort also had quite a nice garden.
Yeah, so they actually do their own culinary gardens. Like the chef there is from Australia, and so he actually has a huge plot planted, and so the majority of their produce comes from their own gardens, and so there's 7 actual gardeners that work on the farm where they're growing their own bananas for their production. For
7
their
full-time
smoothies.
gardeners for this resort.
For that, just that, yeah. For
on-site farm.
On-site farm. Like, he's like, look underneath here. And he lifts the thing. He's like, that's how we do bean sprouts. I'm like, that's awesome. Tomatoes and like everything that they could possibly need, they grew there for the most part. But it was an amazing facility to see and great. You know, if you need to go the way on and get a suit made, because if you need clothing made, that's apparently the place to go, because there's, I don't know, 1,000 shops and 400 of them make stuff for you. So you can get you a suit in about 32 minutes if you're really in a crunch. Shoes, whatever you need made for it, it's really kind of impressive. But we basically just stayed at the hotel and read, and then when I found out that the pool was heated, I was like, you can turn the heater on? He's like, oh yes. Why didn't you ask? I was like, I didn't know. So I was like, I didn't want to leave after that.
But you had to.
I did. What's that? Oh,
this
good
is
Lord.
the woman making your favoriteest dish.
Gary, I'm sorry. So this is what unique. So this is the dish that like kind of caught me off guard.
In what city?
This is in Ho Chi Minh, but okay. You'll find it all over. And I'm so sorry, but I try to learn somewhat about the language and as far as the food goes, but I don't even want to try it. Ban Chang Nyong. I did? Yes. So this is kind of, I think, where the change is happening as far as like, because the food of Houston is definitely post-war, but it's when people came over, this is what they brought, and then what is starting to evolve there, because I can't. There's like one place in the city that you can find this, and it's and I ask everybody, I'm like, and I show them pictures like this, and like it doesn't exist here. I'm like, why? You know, and so basically it's a rice paper that is. We got a video of one of my waitresses is over there right now, and she sent me this video, and so it was kind of cool to be able to put this up for you guys to see. It's basically this little char grill, rice paper that's Jacqueline told me, who's Saigon Pagolac, told me it's a little bit thinner, and the fire's a little bit lower, so it gets really crispy. And then it's quail egg and ground pork, and ours had dried shrimp that was ground up into it. And they mix it all up, and then they toast it on this, and it's like a kick-ass quesadilla. And then they fold it over in little hot sauce, and it was like 50 cents, you know? Like, same thing, and I was just like, oh my God. This is, and so like I've been on this quest to find it here, and there's like, I guess one place that does it. I just found that out, but so
yeah,
it
was not, 20 minutes before we had this conversation that we were back with, Jacqueline from Saigon Pagolac, and
she's like,
no, there's only one place in all of Houston that does this dish.
Because I literally go everywhere, and it's just like that disappointing thing. But in the middle of eating this, Calvin, our guide, was like, we gotta go, and I was like, what'd I do? I said, no, we gotta go. And then, like, he took us to these 3 ladies, sisters, that they only did bankan, so like a noodle soup with a pig's foot in it, and they did it. It started at 3, and you had to be there at 3 because they were out by like 3:20, and it was the busiest place that I saw. It was like the little guy comes out with the little chair, and I'm like, I'm cool on the step, man. But it was delicious. But that was to me very iconic and something that I would like to see here. And we've talked about producing this, and it hasn't really worked out. Maybe it's because of the rice paper. I don't know. But
okay, this is
boom.
An interesting.
Yeah. So this was all right. This is probably one of my favorite things to see. So on this second day of us touring around the city and eating, Cal was like, well, we're going to go to this restaurant. It's one of my favorite. Him and his wife, one of his favorite places to go, and they're friends with the chef. And so We go and we sit out on the table out on the street corner, and they get the little grill, and I'm sitting there looking around, and they're bringing food to us, and I look over, and I'm like, why is there a bunch of Tony Sacheries on the wall? And he's like, huh? I was like, why is there that here? And he was like, I don't know. Hold on, let me ask her. And she comes out. She goes,
And sorry, what city were you in?
Ho Chi Minh.
Ho Chi Minh, okay.
And she's like, I lived in Houston for 7 years. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome.
In the middle of Ho Chi Minh City.
Yeah, so she's a chef that lived and grew up there, came here for 7 years, had the Vietnamese style crawfish that's so prevalent in our beautiful city, and tried to take it back there, right? Because the Vietnamese crawfish restaurants that you have here are not, that doesn't exist. Crawfish really don't exist in Vietnam for the most part. It doesn't happen. So she was like, I'll make you something kind of similar, and so this was her version of it with shrimp.
Because crawfish weren't in season.
Well, they just don't have it.
Oh, they just don't have it.
Yeah, it doesn't really exist. And so here, and this is like the, what's next before I go to the heartfelt moment?
Hold on.
Oh yeah, sweet. So for me, like the Vietnamese, hey, she made more off me giving her money from the picture than she did the banana. So she's like, banana, $1. I was like, here's $10. It's a cool picture. But like, so the Vietnamese crawfish thing, which I think is really kind of taking off like wildfire throughout the South and throughout the country, especially in this city, is one of the reasons what makes this city so great and what makes this culture so great as far as food goes. Because it's a culture that came into this area and adapted and didn't change something. They just made it somewhat their own, right? Because they took something that's the boil house and the southern crawfish boil is everywhere, right? And so you've got spicy water, and then it comes out of the water, and then it's tossed in these seasonings, and then it's set down, and right? And so then you get this new style, this new thought where the ingredients are added into it, where there's the lemongrass and the orange and the citrus and all this delicious stuff, and then you get these little sides of butter and seasoning. And to me, it's a beautiful thing to see when you walk into a place like Crawfish and Noodles on a Sunday during crawfish season, right? Because it's one of the only places that I know, as far as in this style of restaurant, where you can walk into a restaurant and every ethnic group is there at once. So you can walk in and there's the Vietnamese, the Chinese, Hispanic, Middle Eastern, black, white. Everybody's there at one time, and everybody's sharing food in one place. And I think that's where good things have to start, if that makes sense. And so every time I see it, it walks, like I walk in and it just, I didn't say it. I smile, and it gives me this like realistic dream and hope that things are changing and things are evolving that became from one person's food. That's an awesome moment. And I walk into restaurants and that's what I look at all the time, because Houston's such an amazing place for its diversity and what exists. And you don't ever see that until you walk into that, until you walk into a Vietnamese crawfish joint. So, mind-blowingly awesome for me. So that's my little heartfelt moment of happiness. Like, which I'm always happy, but that means a lot to me. Cool. My dude!
Yeah. This is Chris he just got this video yesterday and he's obsessed with it.
Yeah, so this is basically like street food, and this is in where's she at? Dalat. So Dalat, which is kind of like the breadbasket of Vietnam, which we have yet to go, and every day I talk to my girlfriend, I'm like, it's about time we go back to Vietnam again. But this little dude just crushes it.
How do you say to go?
And so this is a dish I was talking about. And
this is like the best quesadilla ever that you haven't been able to find here, and apparently one.
And his shirt says sensitive. She pointed that out.
You need to hire him.
I would in a heartbeat. But I like that, like, somebody comes in and kind of tells him what to do, and he just like, get back, you know.
So maybe at Underbelly you can start making this dish.
Don't push it. I would open a restaurant based just on this. Not saying I am, but I would. Hey, how perfect is this, though, right?
So you said that you want to go back to Vietnam.
I do. I like this part coming up because he stops and gets a snack. He comes over in just a second, he's like, cuts his, has a little bite, chills out. All right, I got this. Hey, that's awesome. Looks delicious. All right. Vietnam.
So the next time you go back to Vietnam,
I would do more in Hanoi and Dalat, and I really want to go to Hue. I just want to go to Hue to have Bumble Hue. That's it, really. I mean, that's just iconic to me. So.
And what would be your recommendations for anyone here that is, you know, kind of interested in culinary things and maybe interested in going to Vietnam?
Right? Recommendation. You know, just be open and try things. Like it's really, you see these travel guys all the time. They're like, if you see it, it looks delicious, eat it. Like, do that, right?
I mean, do you recommend getting a guide? Or
yeah, no, I think guides are really good. And the thing, I really preach this guy Calvin a lot, because it was like $100 per person per day, and you pay the food tabs. That to me seems really cheap, because you're not going to get that experience anywhere else, right? And it's not just that. Like, so for us, it's a little bit different because he kind of knows that we're in the chef world or whatever, but he gives us a cell phone. So if we're ever in need, or if we're ever in trouble anywhere else in the country, just call. Because like you take your AT&T, doesn't work, right? Doesn't work. So you got to get little SIM card disposable phones, whatever. And so he gave us one, made sure we're set up, gave us a list, gave us contacts of people to talk to. And these are what this guy will do for pretty much everybody. Like, give you a list of who you need to talk to in what city, so you know what's going on. But yeah, spend the money, get a guide. Don't. You can look at this article and get pretty much everywhere we went. But I mean, it's worth the money to do a guide, at least for a little bit till you get acclimated. Because if we wouldn't have had a guide that first day, I'd have just been like, oh, Jesus.
Lots of mopeds.
We're going back inside, you know. I wouldn't know, because it's like a constant stream of 1,000 mopeds just going by, and they don't stop. And you're like, okay, the light's gonna, no, the light didn't stop it. You just literally put your hands up, and like this elderly gentleman, he's probably 85. We're standing there, like I don't know when to go, and all of a sudden he just grabs me by the arm and puts his hands up and just bolts across. So he just starts walking. I was like, oh, that's how you do it. And I grabbed Lindsay. I was like, all right, put your hands up, let's go. And like you just right across. Everybody goes around you. They're not going to hit you. But if you stop, they're going to hit you. So just keep going. I learned that, but it took me. It was in Hanoi that I learned that one. So it's a different country and it's different times. But it's go and have fun and be open to it, and really just try everything.
And just before we open it up for questions, I understand that your trip also served as inspiration for dishes that are now or have been or can be seen on the Underbelly menu, and in one in particular that you've kind of left on there because it's
the chaka. So in Hanoi, there's a place called Chaka Lavong, which was very iconic because you got to be careful because there's Chaka La something right across the street and Chaka something something right next door to it. So there's the original, right? Chaka Lavong, but it opens at 5. Just know that. Because if you get there at 4:55, he's just going to wave you off and tell you to come back. And so we did, and we came back, and I was like, okay, we're tired. We just got off the plane. I want to eat. I'm starving. Haven't eaten all day. And I think that they were kind of feeling the same way at the time, because it was like, I feel like we woke them up, right? Everybody was like nap time, and we got there like, oh God, it's that guy. But they slapped down a piece of paper, like laminated. It's like, this dish serves grilled fish. That's it. This is the price. And it was like, we want two, and it comes out, and they kind of cook it. So it's a piece of fish, like white fish, that's marinated in turmeric and oil, and then kind of pan fried in front of you with a lot of dill, and then rice noodle and fish sauce and herbs, and peanuts, and like it's like we can do this. Like that's going to be one of those dishes.
And you didn't love, and this was apparently the place to have this dish in Vietnam. It was the best place to have it, and then you didn't love it.
I didn't love it, but I didn't love that experience for the most part, because we were there.
The New York Times had written about it, and this was the Chocolat.
This is going to be the most amazing place. And
right.
We were there 20 minutes. Right. I think they went back to bed. It was like, okay, get in, get out, see you later. But it was one of those dishes like, I know this can be really good, and so let's put it. We're going to work on it. And so I worked with my guys when we got back, and so we do this turmeric and dill marinated fish. We put it in yogurt and then slow roast it, or just roast it. I shouldn't say slow. It goes in a 500-degree oven, so there's no slow about that. We just roast it pretty hard, and then it goes on a bed of rice noodle with nuoc mam and peanuts and chilies and cabbage and dill, lots of dill. And I think it's one of these dishes like I thought, no, we'll put it on and see how this works. And it hasn't left. It's probably right behind the goat and dumplings. It's probably the most the highest moving dish that we do. And in fact, Lindsay probably has it 2 to 3 times a week.
If I could, I would.
It's
like so light and refreshing, and
it's like the Houston summer dish that is. It just makes sense, and it's like and really it was at the time when our farmers are bringing us a lot of dill, and I was like, all right, we got to move some dill. And it was like, okay, this makes sense. This is perfect, right? And so when we had it in Vietnam, I was like,
So you've done chocolate better than chocolate bong.
I don't know about that. We just do our version. I never want to say that we do something better than another place, because it's just our interpretation of those dishes. And we don't want to rip anything off. We just want to highlight it, because you can go get this at Tien Tan down across from Hong Kong City Mall. In that grocery store, it's the same kind of thing, more of a northern Vietnamese style restaurant. So a lot of those dishes, but you can get that there too, and it comes out on a little sizzling platter, and it's delicious. It's just we do it our way. Yeah.